What I'm going to do this time, I'm going to go ahead and go over all of the expansions and the features that they've introduced. Honestly, mainly just to explain what made each expansion good and what expansions kind of started the downfall, and the idea of just game development, game theory in general, game design. So first let's go ahead and start with Classic. So in Classic, Azeroth was introduced. Let me go ahead and zoom in here so it doesn't look horrible. Azeroth was introduced. This was the Eastern Kingdoms in Kalimdor. We had the original races. That would be the Trolls, Orcs, Tauren, Undead, Human, Gnomes, Dwarves, Night Elf. We had the original talent trees. So I'll just put OG talent trees. That was essentially the three trees that you had to go through in Vanilla WoW. If you don't know what I'm talking about, then it was far more in-depth version of the talent tree than we have now. It was an MMO, of course. This is a brand new game. This blew a lot of people away. This entire game was something completely new to the world. On top of this, a huge variety of dungeons. The original dungeons like VC and just all of those in general. Questing, it was the way that they did it was a relatively new idea. When you played EverQuest or anything like that, the questing wasn't anywhere near as intuitive as it was in Vanilla WoW. The way that they did it was extremely user-friendly, and that's mostly why people would play the game, honestly. I think that was a huge thing. Because in EverQuest, it was pretty hard to figure out the controls, and it still is if you are able to go back and play it in any way. It's a weird game to get used to in general. We had the original classes. This entails the Hunter, Warrior, Shaman, Warlock, Paladin, Rogue, Mage, Druid, and the Priest. Meeting Stones were introduced later. Well, I mean, the Meeting Stones are always there, but they were introduced later to actually work as a kind of a group finder tool. We had the original Battlegrounds, that was Warsong Gulch and Arathi Basin, and later on we had Alterac Valley. Professions, which were blacksmithing, enchanting, tailoring, leatherworking, engineering, alchemy. And then we had gathering, herbalism, mining, skinning, and secondaries such as cooking, fishing, and first aid. And the max level was 60. The plot in this one was essentially, it was the Horde versus Alliance, end of the Dark Iron War, destruction from Nefarion, who was the kid of Deathwing. There was the Old Gods, and it was kind of the beginning of the Lich King. Now we'll move on to Burning Crusade. Outlands was introduced. I mean, it was already introduced in like Warcraft 2, but this was actually introduced into the MMO. There was the new main city, which was Shatrath. Flying was introduced. You could either get normal flying for 225 gold and a mount for 50 gold, or you could get the epic flying after getting the normal flying, of course, for 5,000 gold. Just the trading, and then the mount was 100 gold on top of that. If you were a druid, you could receive a flight form at level 68, and at level 70 you could get a quest that would get you an epic flight form. If you didn't do that, your flying speed was the same as just the normal flying, but it was super easy to get comparatively, because let me tell you, even 225 gold was hard to get, so getting 5,000 gold, that was a different story. Battlegrounds, Eye of the Storm. Not a bad Battlegrounds. Burning Crusade overall wasn't a bad expansion, but did introduce a few things that I have some complaints about. And the new races, Blood Elves and the Draenor. These new races allowed Blood Elves to be a Paladin on the Horde, and Draenor to be Shamans on the Alliance. This kind of took away a little bit of the faction separation. Now this was kind of catering to people to allow anybody to play whatever class they wanted on whatever race. Or not whatever race, but whatever faction. So, PvP Arena was introduced. 2v2s, 3v3s, and 5v5s. And the max level on here was 70. And the plot. The plot of this game was mainly the Black Temple, the Gods of Zulaman, and the Fury of the Sunwell. Overall, I would say that Blizzard has stuck pretty well on their plot. Their story writing has always been amazing, but as for the game development, that's kind of what I'm going over. Wrath of the Lich King, Northrend was introduced. Cold weather flying was a thing that you had to buy if you wanted to fly in Northrend. You had to be at least level 77 to buy Cold Weather Flying, and if you were level 80 you could buy a Tome of Cold Weather, which was purchasable and tradable. And then you had the new hero class, which was the Death Knight, so I'm just going to put DK. Several dungeons and raids, championing, which was a new faction tabard system, and Battlegrounds, which were Strand of the Ancients and Isle of the Conquest. The new professions, which was inscription, just inscription, used for vellums and glyphs. This actually used to be pretty handy. The glyphs were pretty important, and I think I really liked inscription how it was back then. The old raids were tuned from 40 man to 20 man right here, I believe, and the max level was 80. You could also dual spec during Waddle K for 1,000 gold. Dual specking definitely removed a lot of the hassle from the game. I didn't mind dual specking overall. I didn't like that they tuned the old raids down, but dual specking, in my opinion, was a nice little thing. The old talent tree system. And in late Waddle K, what really went downhill is that heirlooms were introduced and Dungeon Finder was introduced. This was after Activision bought them out. This was the Nexus War, More Old Gods, and the Lich King, of course. To Cataclysm. This game had a complete world revamp. Pretty much just everything was destroyed. Their world was just redone. The questing system was completely redone. It was far more personalized. The questing was more focused on kind of a single player scenario in a manner, because phasing was introduced. Phasing, essentially, if you walk anywhere near another player in from a different server. So this helped with a lot of the server population issues and their hosting issues. Hyjal, Vostier, Deepholm, Oldham, Twilight Highlands were introduced into the game, and we have the new races, the Worgen and the Goblins. They both start in their own respective areas of the map. The new Battlegrounds were Tolbarad, Battle for Gilneas, and Twin Peaks. Archaeology was introduced, and Reforging was introduced. Reforging was kind of a neat little system. Archaeology is still kind of useless. It was a nice little system that allowed you to reattune your stats on your gear. It let you reattune your stats, and this is a good and a bad thing. It was a good thing because, I mean, cool. It's neat to have that little feature. It was a bad thing because it took away of the extra work that you had to do throughout the game to get the gear that you wanted. Dungeons were introduced in Cataclysm. It was like Heroic VC, so for level 85. Raids were tuned down from 20 man to 10 man raids, so another tuning. Talent trees were cut to 31 points, so instead of every one level getting a talent tree point, you would have to get a point every 2 levels instead. They updated the entire environment style, and the max level was now 85. Honestly, there wasn't very much. Essentially, Deathwing just fucks everything up. Like, overall, the entire lore of even the raids, everything about that expansion, Deathwing, was just destructive. And then we get on to Midst of Pandaria. There's a new pet battle system, the new class, which was a monk, dungeon, challenge modes, and scenarios. I actually kind of like scenarios. Scenarios were a fun little thing. I don't know why they got rid of them or changed them the way they did, but they did scenarios then was kind of neat. It gave a little bit more variety to the game, honestly. Was a new playable race, a neutral race. Achievements and account-wide pets and mounts. Removing the hassle from your other characters, having to rebuy mounts and stuff like that. This is a good feature and a bad feature. Good on the aspect of, you know, not having to go through the struggle to get those mounts again. On the aspect of, as a new character, you just had everything. So now you can create a character, and right when you hit level 20, you don't have to do anything. You just have that mount immediately. More along the lines of Cataclysm or Mist of Pandaria, the price of mounts started to drop dramatically. Actually, I think that might have happened in Warlords K. Not entirely positive off the back of my hand, where the price dropped, because price used to cost, what was it, 900 gold for an epic mount or something, and then in BC, 5,000 for epic flying. Anyways, Mist of Pandaria, there was new Battlegrounds, quite a few actually. There were Silver Shard Mines, Temple of Kot Magu, and Deepwind Gorge, and the max level was now 90. The lore essentially here was they discovered a new continent, and it was the death of Garrosh. It was the finisher for Garrosh, Hellscream. And now we can go up to Warlords of Draenor. Draenor was introduced. The new character models, for all of your characters, they have high-res models now. Dungeons and raids. You got your first legendary item through questing, which was your legendary ring. It wasn't really that easy to get, but it was guaranteed and pretty much required. Your legendary ring, people didn't really want you very often. Dungeons were introduced. Mythic Dungeons is a neat system. I like the idea of it, but I also think the dungeons should just be that hard anyways. The item squish, so the stats were changed, and hit expertise and dodge and parry were gone. Raid Finder was introduced. This made it so people from 5 to 40 man groups could just queue up. There were latency upgrades, so your internet speeds didn't have as many problems as they used to. There were personal scenarios while questing, and there was the garrison, which was heavily used for gold farming. The garrison was a cool idea. In my opinion, it was poorly placed. And world quests were introduced. They weren't super heavily used in Draenor. I think the world bosses and stuff like that were more used, that they put inside of Draenor, but world quests were introduced, and the max level was 100. I don't remember if Draenor was where this was introduced, but it was personal loot. It was either in Draenor or it was in Mist of Pandaria, and that was... personal loot is a neat idea. I don't think that it should be in play though. Personal loot is something that takes away the identity of what makes items special, essentially, because you used to farm out for specific items. You used to work your butt off just to get these general items that existed in raids, and now the new way personal loot is going, things attune directly to you, but in here raids would just drop the items that you wanted, and you didn't have to re-roll usually, because it would drop a lower item level version of the item, but specifically dedicated towards your class. Always to get a drop, but sometimes it could be 2 times in a raid, or 3 times, or sometimes even more, that you could get an item drop from a raid, whereas before this, you'd have to rerun a dungeon multiple times just to get one piece of your set. Alright. The lore was Return to the Dark Portal and Altering the Past. And now we're on Legion, which Broken Isles is introduced, artifact weapons, don't really need to explain too much here, but artifact weapons is a weapon dedicated to your class that has its own little built-in talent tree that's not really a talent tree anymore because the artifact powers become so inflated that you just max out your talent tree completely and then you just keep leveling up the single point in it, so there's no thinking in it involved anymore. Hero class, which was the Demon Hunter. The Order Hall, essentially just another garrison, but a little tuned down, a little bit more balanced. World quests are heavily used in Legion. Like, you are going to be doing world quests for probably months. I did world quests for a month and a half just to get my rep grind up for the allied races, and it was beyond reason of how long I had to sit there and do world quest and then wait a day and do world quest and wait a day and just deal with these time walls and then wait 3 days just to get an emissary quest and wait a day for my mission to come back, wait a day for my mission to come back. It was asinine how much I had to do to get that rep grind with time walls. I don't care about having the work. I care about the fact that I was being blocked off from being allowed to do it on a game that I pay monthly to play. There are new dungeons raids. There's a new honor system where you can actually level up your honor and go to prestige levels. I think it's kind of interesting, and the max level is 110. The lore here is Kingdoms will burn. Famous quote from Burning Crusade is "You are not prepared," and apparently the famous quote in Legion is "You are now prepared." Go ahead and let's pick and pull a few of these. So, Order Hall and Garrison. I don't know why we needed Facebook in the game. I don't understand why we needed a concept of pressing a button and waiting for hours at a time to have something come back that is essentially required to unlock other reputation in the game so that you can unlock allied races or flying in general. I have no idea why they thought that, first of all, a reputation grind like that was mainly attainable through World Quest, Garrison, and Order Hall resources was the way they wanted to go in order to obtain flying. I could understand if it was up to maybe Revered, but getting to Exalted with World Quest was just stupid. It was just dumb. There's nothing good I can say about it. There's nothing good that any live player can say about this. And if you try to tell me otherwise, I mean, you better have some good information to back it up, because World Quest, you are literally repeating the same quests over and over and over again. I might as well just cut my wrist off, because that was just stupid how much I had to redo the same content. I don't want to play Facebook. This isn't a Facebook game. This is an MMO. This is a game that I want to veg out, play for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. This is not Facebook. Stat changes. Stat changes. Why did we remove a whole bunch of stats and then replace it with stats that affect every class? Sure, there are some stats that are better. There's haste, there's mastery, there's critical strike. Pretty much every caster is better with haste. Pretty much every caster is better with mastery in a specific spec. It's not like one class in the game is better with intelligence, one class in the game is better with agility. The game has removed a lot of the separation from everything. So stat changes, no. Artifacts, a free legendary. Not even a legendary, it's just freaking... You get that for free. You also get your other free legendaries that drop from heroics, regulars. You get your legendaries from regular raids, regular mythic dungeons, heroic raids, mythic raids. You get them from World Quest. You just get free legendaries. If you just play the game, you will get a legendary. And with that, now after 735, which I like the 735 slowed down leveling, but 735 makes it so you can just purchase a legendary after playing a week. In a week's time, you can get enough resources to buy 2 legendaries. Legendaries. Come on. So, Legendary Ring, that one was hard to get. I kind of can't really throw it out, but the Legendaries in Legion, like, problem. Why are we getting free Legendaries? In Pandaria honestly was neat content. It was a little weird to get used to the new kind of, panda-ish everything. I wasn't a huge fan of the pandas, but there are some people who like them. I'm not going to dish them because they're pandas. That's not what I'm here to do. I think I was originally excited about getting pandas, so I can't really complain. I don't like the fact that they're neutral. It makes it harder to tell sometimes whether the panda's on my side or on the other enemy's team. Achievements. This has turned into the entire goal of the game. Achievements has turned into what everybody is trying to get in WoW because it makes people able to brag. It's turned into what they can say about them that makes them better than other people. The game shouldn't be about achievements. The game should be about socializing. It's an MMO. You should be talking to other people. You should be having fun. And fun is not a part of the game anymore. Fun is... I mean, sure. Well, no, not even. Like, fun is not part of the game. Now the game is just too serious. You do world quests for a year. You do Order Hall missions for a year. You do... And then every now and then you'll do a raid. You can do those weekly, which raids go by really fast, so it's not really that awesome. But you do a raid weekly, and raids are fun the first couple times you do them, but then what's the point after the first couple times? You just move up to Heroic, and then you move up to Mythic, and that's awesome, and then it starts to become the same content over and over again. And it doesn't even take that long to get up there. It takes a month. Although after 7.3.5, it'll probably take a little more than a month. It might take 2 months, possibly. I don't know. It might take 2 months, max, to get up to level 110 and get into Mythic rating tier. But the entire game is completed in 2 months after 7.3.5. This was a slowdown. Now, there's going to be a stat change when Battle for Azeroth comes out, and they re-ramp a whole bunch of things, but come on. And I didn't see any new Battlegrounds introduced in either of these expansions. No Battlegrounds. In Mist of Pandaria, there was the Temple of Komogu, Silver Shard Mine. Silver Shard Mine's kind of fun, Deepwind Gorge is kind of fun. Temple of Komogu to me is just a mess. It's literally just a gaggle fuck. The entire thing is, it's designed to be a gaggle fuck. You just run around and attack people like crazy. Yes, there are strategies. You can circle around the ring, or you can just all get in the middle and just focus orbs, but there's a debuff that makes it so healing doesn't affect the orbs as much, so why even attack anybody else? Why focus anybody except for the orbs? The entire thing is so straightforward that it's literally just who has the most DPS, who has the biggest dick. Scenarios were cool. The monk it's a neat thing, although you can just go do a quest and get 50% experience, which is pretty much just saying, okay, hey, I want to skip part of the game. We have a pet battle system now, so thank you for bringing Pokemon into the game. I'm glad that Pokemon is now a part of World of Warcraft, because that's what we needed. I mean, it was nice having, pets, and they're cool and all, but please get those stupid world quests out of my way. They're constantly asking me to complete pet battles, because I don't want to do pet battles. They're not part of World of Warcraft. This is a fantasy MMORPG, not a fantasy I want to freaking play a turn-based strategy game in the middle of the thing that takes a loading screen if you want to play against other people or queue up for a dungeon or something like that. Now, not that dungeon finding was any better, so I don't know why you decided to bring it into a pet battle system. In Cataclysm... Oh, why did I write Urbic? Anyways, there was tuning down. It needed to happen. The world revamp was just... I don't get it. I don't get why they revamped the world that they did. I would have wished they would have just upgraded the models and just stuck with that. And I also don't understand why the new model style kind of went in a more Pixar-esque style, when we were having crazy cinematics that were based on the original World of Warcraft cinematics. They were freaking gorgeous. Nobody else could compete with them. We had Diablo 2 that had a cinematic that still has better graphics than pretty much half of the movies that we have nowadays. And we went with a Pixar-style graphic system. And we had a world revamp. We had phasing. Phasing destroyed world PvP. It removed everything to do with PvP. Like, what's the point of doing PvP if you run around the world and everybody's gone? This entire phasing system has made it so people don't talk to each other, on top of the Dungeon Finder system. You know, this little thing right here. Dungeon Finder and phasing made it so that if people sit in a main city, which used to dance, used to joke, used to talk to random people in a main city, run to the auction house, run back, go somewhere else in the entire freaking world. But phasing made it so that people, combined with Dungeon Finder, people would press I, they join group, and people would just sit in Orgrimmar, they'd run to the bank, they'd run to the auction house, run back to the bank, run to the auction house, run back to the bank. But Dungeon Finder made it so that people would go into a dungeon and then they would never come back because they'd be in a different server when they came back. Don't even expect to talk to them ever again. They're gone. So that just deleted the MMO aspect of the game entirely, because sure, you can whisper people, and sure, you can invite people to your group, and you can try and join a guild, and that's probably your best method of talking to people. But if you want to talk to random people just because you want to talk to random people, that's gone. Dual spec is neat. Inscription was neat. I like glyphs. Heirlooms. I don't know why we decided to put a mechanic in the game that literally says, "Hey, I want to skip the entire game 50% faster." Like, Blizzard, you spent years making this thing. People play the game. And then we have Death Knights, which were super overpowered at the beginning of Model K, but they didn't ruin the game, honestly. Championing, Strand of the Ancients, Isle of Conquest. I'm not a huge fan of those either, but they're alright. Not gonna complain about it. Cold Weather Flying, they required you get some work. I don't really like flying, and I'll get to that. And Northrend. So, the Model K, everything was honestly kind of fine. Everything was good, and then Activision happened. In Burning Crusade, we have Outlands, which was introduced. A new main city, which is Shatrath. I guess I could have said the same thing here. There was Dalaran. I don't even know what happened here. It was a gaggle fuck of everything. They had that one temple in Miss Pandaria. And Draenor, you had that place inside of Draenor, which was off to the right, where the PvP happened next to it, but nobody ever used it because it was just poorly placed. And it didn't really do anything for you. And in Legion, we have Dalaran again. They kind of just took it back and said, hey, we're going to reuse this content. BSC, Shatrath, we have Flying. Flying is a cool concept. But it made it so at level 70, people could either just power level the crap out of people, they could just fly over top of things, they could ignore the entire game just so they could fly straight in, which they addressed here by cold weather flying and not allowing you to fly until level 77 again. Blizzard admitted that they knew this was a problem, so you can't even tell me that this isn't an issue. You can tell me that flying didn't ruin the game all you want, but Blizzard even admitted it right here in Waddle K. So cold weather flying was kind of to alleviate it, but they already put flying in the game and they can't get rid of flying, and that was them kind of admitting that they fucked up. Shaman and Pally being mixed into each of the factions, this removed the diversity of the factions, made it so that Horde didn't just have the Shaman and Alliance didn't just have the Pally, and now they are equal on terms, opposed to having something to fight over to decide which one is better. I think that in an MMO, if you have factions like this, you have two people. You have the good people and the bad people, and you want to decide which one is better. But how can you decide which one is better if they both have all the same stuff? Like, what is the point? I can't decide that. Arena is a cool system. I like 2v2s, 3v3s, 5v5s. It's kind of fun. Max level 70. In Azeroth, this is just all the original content. And it was straightforward. There wasn't any bullshit. We had the original talents, which, you know, branched out. They went all the way down here. They did all this junk. And they just did their own thing. And then somewhere around Cataclysm and Miss Pandaria, it turned into this. Cool. Pick your pick your talent. Like, this was far more complicated, it was far more immersive, it was far more rewarding. The fact that you got something every level that you could put a point into, it let you build your character, let you build the trust into your own character. It was far more immersive. That was something that made Vanilla WoW great. So, on top of this, there was the original questing, no phasing, original dungeons. You had to go talk to people. You had to find a group. You could do LF. You could use the looking for group chat in main cities, and you could message people on your local server. That's keyword, local server, because this was essentially your family. The server that you played on, they were the same people you played with every single time. You had your original classes, meeting stones were introduced, so it's not that Group Finder didn't exist, it's just people didn't know how to use it. We had the original Battlegrounds and the original Professions. Professions were far more important because you could use Professions while leveling, and the Professions were actually useful to you while leveling because of how slow the leveling process was. You had lots of time while leveling in order to make gear that was better than what you were currently wearing and would hold up for the next few levels. And a few levels was like 6 to 8 hours at an average playtime. So it was actually relatively useful, whereas now a level after 735, a level is about 45 minutes, and with the level being 45 minutes and having professions, and the professions being to make gear that is slightly worse than your gear because it's a blue item instead of a green item if you go into a dungeon, then why even bother with professions? The only reason you can bother with professions is because once you hit max level, ignoring all of the leveling content, you are able to make things using cooking. You can make a table, or at max level you can make items that go relatively high to help speed up the process of getting into a dungeon, or getting into a mythic dungeon, or getting into raids, such as 885 leggings, or you can even craft a legendary piece of gear, opposed to working your butt off to get one. So what is the point of professions if they don't help you at all in the leveling process? In vanilla, you would make green items and you'd be like, oh shit, that's a green item, or you make a blue item or a purple item at the very end at level 16, that would blow your mind because they didn't happen. It was hard to get those items. They were things that you had to work for. You didn't just get them for free after clicking I join group and running a 10-minute dungeon and then getting a free loot bag that has all the items that you want in it. So, here's the core. It's an MMO, so social. You had a cool talent tree that made it far immersive. You had races and factions, and the game was about orcs versus humans. We don't need all of this junk that has handheld us and made the game easier. It's not that Vanilla WoW's even hard. The game is very casual. All you have to do is play the game, do your quests, get a profession, use your spells, and make sure that you have food and water on you, and drink and eat between fights. That is what you do in Vanilla WoW. What you do in Legion is press I and join group, press I and join group, press I and join group, and then do world quests over and over and over again. And then once you hit max level, you can join a pre-made group, or create a pre-made group, or join a guild who already has things scheduled out for you. The socializing aspect of the game is gone, the fun aspect of the game is gone, and now it's just a serious aspect on a level that doesn't make sense because the game's not even hard. Anyways, thank you for watching. If you enjoy my content, like and subscribe. Feel free to leave a comment, and that's my rant.